Sorry about this, people, but hey ho, shit happens. Oh god, it's not working. Why is it not working? I don't get it. And it's connected. Should be able to fucking hear it. Oh god almighty, why is it not working? Anyway, alrighty YouTube, welcome to another one of Kip's Clips without any fucking audio for some strange weird reason. Let me just... Right, that's working there, why isn't it? Properties, headphones. Kip's Clips. Kip's Clips. Alrighty YouTube, smooth as possible start, eh? Well, thanks for joining everybody, welcome to 1984 Newspeak, News at 1 live. As promised, I'll be doing the UK column. Up till the 11th hour, I didn't actually know if their live stream was going on, but I do believe it has. I had the old Russia Today there for backup. Let me go and see if I can find today's stream from the UK column. Okay.
Up to our viewers and listeners. Believe that Theresa May should be allowed to get away of the medical treatment in solitary confinement, responsible as Home Secretary. So those were her to teach future generations to fight. I pledge to do everything in my power to ensure we can never. Good afternoon, it's Monday the 29th of January.
Right, bingo, just wanted to make sure I had the right stream there. The chat is disabled, the chat isn't disabled on here, so people can freely talk about the UK column, the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever. They definitely are part of the F.E.A.R industrial complex, which I painted out a couple of weeks ago with the diagram and stuff, and they are going to have to get added. There's so many levels that the UK column you can... so many connections of their web that it's very easy. It's once you see it in the diagram and all the connections, it becomes plain as day that they are part of the F.E.A.R industrial complex. They are the British Constitution Group. Good, bad, who knows? But why are they inventing their own news streams and then selling it to you as gospel and truth? When these people clearly come from a particular demographic, and they tell you they're only doing is telling the truth and pointing out corruption. My argument is, along the journey of doing that, they may be doing it for political agendas that they won't admit to. Brian Gerrish worked with F.E.A.R. Crane back in when they were trying to launch their TV channel years ago, and it went all tits up. Gerrish is a ex-colleague of David Icke as well. I could go on and on and on. So I thought it would be worthwhile to actually critically think about the information UK column is offering us up. The same way that they tell you to do with the BBC, but then, oh, not us, Gov, we're only telling the truth. So they want you to ask questions about the BBC and not them. My argument is it's healthier for an individual and all-rounded scepticism to question both of them. So we'll get into the UK column in one wee second. First and foremost, I would lie if I told you I am a familiar peruser of their website. I just wanted to give you a flavour. There's nothing really new up there I can see. Anyway, so in the afternoon, on and all. So the UK fifth column, critically thought about live, right? Does what it says on the tin. 1984 Newspeak News for 29th of January 2018. If you do appreciate it, feel free to stick a wee thumbs up. It does help the clips and helps the channel, apparently. And it puts a smile on my face, look. So feel free to stick a wee thumbs up. You can share it with your friends, family and foes. Please help the show grow. It relies on cross-promotion. Word of mouth and whatnot. And hi to everybody in the chat. All the social medias and links are below for all the music, YouTubes, DTubes, Steam it. And if you appreciate the shows in any way and get any value from them, feel free to use the Patreon and PayPal buttons down below. And a big thanks to everybody that does. Gary, how you doing? Chinny18 in the afternoon, guys. There's James A. Boy, Stewie. How you doing, guys? Hope you've all had a good weekend and you're ready for another weird, wacky week of news. Anyway, but definitely something a wee bit different going in and checking out the UK column. So let's do it.
2018, just after 1 o'clock. Welcome to UK Column News. I'm your host, Brian Gerrish. With me in studio, of course, Mike Robinson, and we are delighted to also be joined today
Skype link by somebody in America?
By Alex Thompson with
that's
Eastern Approaches.
That's Eastern Approaches. With each, what is Eastern Approaches? What is this? Is he some sort of an independent journalist? Or is he a guy that just manifested out of nowhere saying, I'll say I'm Eastern Approaches? Mike Henningsy, you say you're 21st Century Wire, and we'll all give ourselves different names. We'll call ourselves the UK column, but we all sing from the same hymn sheet. We will be part of the same network. And here's an ex-GCHQ, ex-military intelligence bouncing up on the UK column.
Mike, I had to start on this as a very emotive issue, but it's Theresa May, but she's been signing the Holocaust book. This is the famous page with her signature. She had this to say: the pages of this book unite us in a commitment to remember all those who suffered during the Holocaust. We stand together to honour the lives lost and those who survive. As Prime Minister, I pledge to do everything in my power to ensure we can never forget where prejudice and hatred can lead. The new national memorial to the Holocaust will sit in the...
Now, this is where the wolf in sheep's clothing of the UK column comes into its own. By particularly gunning for one political party over another. And these people aren't stupid. They are aware that the influence they have on the voting public, who they tell to go out and vote, and they're telling them to go out and vote for Corbyn and Labour.
The same Prime Minister who...
Because they're the lesser of two evils.
Secretary, and her responsibility continues with as Prime Minister with incarcerating child abuse survivors in prison without medical treatment in solitary confinement for...
Now, he's talking about Melanie Shaw. And my God, I have so much sympathies for that woman. And it sounds like she's been through the ringer. And rather than someday maybe speaking to her and communicating in a sense to get her to calm the fuck down, be smart, get herself out, stop giving these people an excuse to point at you and go, look, you're crazy. And unfortunately, I see the UK column using this case of Melanie Shaw as a pawn, as a real pawn. Now, they'll present you with a very polarised version of events about what has happened and stuff, and they'll never offer you... We all know how corrupt the system is and stuff. I'm not denying that, and this is the psychology they use, the implication that I'm for the government because I'm pointing at the UK column and saying, what are they actually doing here? They keep harping on about Melanie Shaw, paedophile, sex abuse, whistleblower and stuff, right? And then they never go into the context, like I've got no reason to doubt. Look, who knows what really goes on, right? You go and make your own mind up, truth like lies in your own discernment. But to get caught up in the cult of personality of the UK column that they're here to save you, and then just blindly believe their version about all these very controversial things, from Melanie Shaw to who's the Down syndrome kid, child sex abuse. Fuck, I forgot. Now I'm going to be a shill and a paedophile again, or some sort of a apologist for Holly. No. Fuck, I can't remember. People know exactly who I'm talking about. Brain fart and a half. Holly Gregg, is that it? God, I don't know if that's it. I think so. Anyway, all these kind of cases that these people use to basically champion their cause, to make them look like they've got the moral high ground, right? What I believe, this would be a subversion tactic, wouldn't it, from one country to another, and it goes from all countries. You would get people in that country to start hating their own government, lose a confidence. Not that the government's great or bad or even better, because it fucking serves other people's influence, agendas outside the country. So when you're getting the fear fucking shaken into you by the UK column consistently telling you all these nightmare stories, that's because trust me, I've been there. You believe it, and it's not that you believe it. It's not that they're lying. Propaganda doesn't need to be lies. It can be just pointing and focusing somebody's. Look at people's lives out there who all they might do with their time is focus on corruption everywhere, and they've got no time for good stuff anymore. And it's all about balance, isn't it? It's not about ignoring one over the other. But with the UK column, apart from Brian Gerrish and some of the characters they have on to look and laugh at, it's all doom and gloom, and your government's coming to kill you. Now, if you
periods of over 19 months.
If you find yourself in a position where you're blindly believing that, whether it be true, real, emphasised, exaggerated, or what have you, you'll find yourself in the fight or flight mode. And then you'll find yourself is very susceptible to people injecting different behaviours into you.
With no idea of the sentence and no idea of any release date, I believe that this is just appalling hypocrisy, Mike, and I do not believe that Theresa May should be allowed to get away with this type of duplicity in her political life. We'll leave the rest up to our viewers and listeners.
Yeah, JC will save your day.
I don't think so.
Okay, so today we probably will...
Okay, is this going to... Let's see if they call him Mr. Putin or any sort of a derogatory jokes about him being a wee criminal and all that. Let's see if they just absolutely suck his bobby.
Tell rather than run and hide.
I'm certainly not going to be hiding.
Okay.
Right, well, Russiagate continues to rumble on. Now this is Senator Chuck Grassley, and he and Lindsey Graham on Thursday sent a letter to John Podesta, Joel Benenson, who was with the Obama campaign and was chief strategist for Hillary Clinton, that is. Also chairwoman Donna Brisbane.
This is related to the UK, how?
The
Irishman.
Tom Perez as well. The letter asked 12 questions. We have some of the questions here. So, for example, prior to the Washington Post article in October of 2017, were you or anyone else at Hillary?
Now, you can smell it. He's not, like, UK column are very much pro-Trump. Oh, they've even openly admitted it and stuff. They are a political mind-steering group pretending to tell you the truth.
Government. Did you or anyone else at Hillary for America receive copies of any memoranda comprising Mr. Steele's dossier prior to its publication by BuzzFeed in January of 20?
So they're going to say Trump's getting persecuted because Clinton's so bad, and not because it's like mafia wars. It's like another Don taking over another Don. It's like somebody trying to encroach on somebody else's. So they're still falling into the same old argument, the lesser of two evils. And the people that... My opinion about that is it's weak-willed in people. They cannot see any other way than choosing a side.
Election, and they also ask for all communications to or from a group of 40 named individuals, including John Brennan, Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, Bruce Orr, Fusion GPS in general, James Baker, and also Secretary of State, former Assistant Secretary of State Victoria Nuland. So it is a rogues gallery of people involved in this, either directly being asked these questions or that some of the questions are being asked about. So maybe I could bring Alex Thompson in at this point, Alex, and say welcome to the program.
Hello, Casper the Ghost.
You know, this issue seems to refuse to die, but no.
I'd like to point out the Humpty Dumpty there. I don't know if you can hear his accent. He's Irish, right? Northern Irish. That's why he's working for the UK column.
But he's providing any evidence against Trump, and the evidence against the people that are pulling the so-called dodgy dossier together seems to be building.
The so-called dodgy dossier. Right, we've seen this so-called technique before, haven't we? It's in the mainstream press when they want to invent a meme. Right, like, fucking hell, let's invent something and then just call it the so-called, and then that just injects it into the consciousness. Then nobody questions where the branding, the genesis. Why are we branding these groups like superheroes? Why is there shit everywhere? Why are people showing their shit? Anyway. Hello, Casper.
Just will not die, isn't it, Mike? And
right, Eastern approaches, right? It could refer to a journal about the real James Bond. A journal, autobiography, I think. It was an autobiography of the so-called real James Bond, who James Bond was based on. And I think the biography was called Eastern Approaches. That's only one reference to it. I don't understand, because go and research this. This is just him. It's just him. And rather than go, oh, here, you're part of the UK column gang, they go, well, you call yourself Ginger Casper the Ghost See-Through Approaches. And then see that lamb darag that refers to, it's Irish for red hand or what have you, and it refers to like a Gaelic football team over in Northern Ireland with the red hand at Ulster, which for a lot of people who scratch beneath the surface of the UK column, you can see the connections. It's a wee ex-GCHQ guy who, at Lam Darag, I think that's his Twitter thing, flies the red hand of Ulster, who's ex-GCHQ, and then just volunteered to help the UK column out the goodness of his heart. And again, this is he's English, but he stays in Holland, and he produces shit for the UK column. You got to love all these people hiding behind the nationalism and populism. Now, you know what I mean? Now, I hate foreigners. The foreigners are the problem. And they're all boning foreigners. living in foreign countries. But we're not refugees or immigrants, we're expats down there.
And, you know, I never thought I would couple the name of a former SIS or MI6 officer with BuzzFeed, let alone a BuzzFeed dossier. You know, the BuzzFeed famously was something that David Cameron, during the early part of his premiership, had to ask his staff what it was, and he famously used the article wrongly and said, "What is the BuzzFeed?" Because he was unaware of this political pressure building through new social media-driven, low-quality, shareable content.
That you guys are pretty much top of the pile when it comes to the UK, but you're just here to tell us the truth. BBC lie, UK column, tell you the truth.
Taps into memes, and then for this supposedly reputable news site to get hold of or commission or in some way associate itself with a dossier with former intelligence officers, everything about this process is knockoff. It's a knockoff news agency getting a knockoff spy to produce a knockoff report, and yet it just will not die. And there's so many such sites, some fervent Democrat sites, some not, some more partisan and some less so, some American and some European, that seem only to exist to push a complete narrative of the US president can do nothing right. They don't seem to be very interested in evidence or argument.
Absolutely.
That is the phrase, not interested in evidence or argument. We might come on to that particular analysis with.
That is the phrase. Don't you mean that is the meme that you're trying to inject into the conversation while pointing at the other side and going, look, they're starting a meme war? 1, 2, 3, 4, I declare a meme war.
With regard to child abuse a little later in the news.
Yeah, virtue signaling. Yeah, you look, they're like Robin Hood. They steal from the rich to give to the poor and fucking just go after paedophiles.
We've got this article from Navy.
Or are they appropriating that subject to look like the white knights on their moral horse, on their moral high horse riding into battle? I'm going to argue the latter. How did you end up here fighting the paedophile causes again? Who was raped? Well, Garish was in the Navy.
Question, what is happening to the training of the American military? And I think at least some of those men and...
Okay, right. Now, again, an absolute atrocious fucking product, consequence of the military-industrial complex. What do these guys do? They point at the American side of the military-industrial complex, go, oh, look, it made a mistake, look how bad it is. Have they ever reported on one, and it's got to have happened, one fuck up the Russian army's made and killed innocent people, right? And then I don't even think it's so much a fuck up as it would be counterintelligence. You know what I mean? See all these retardation fucking things where you hear the United States, like, with their big airships fucking bombing the shit out of fucking hospitals with all those NGO groups, some of them that will know. And then you stand back and go, what was going on there? Right? And you can't just say that the guys had a schizophrenic attack and went, right, let's just go and start killing innocent people. You know, they had intelligence that there was sort of high-end target there. Maybe there was, maybe there wasn't, and they were just told to go and level it. Look, there's somebody in the background of Casper's shot. Who's that in the background, Casper?
From going to open court-martial where they would be able...
just stuff to think about.
Some semblance of a common law trial. Uniquely, the US Navy doesn't have that. It claims it has a legal phrase called vessel exemption. And under this vessel exemption, the sailors can be sent to a secret process called a non-judicial punishment, or NJP. And if they're sent to a non-judicial punishment, you'll never hear what happened to those sailors or officers. The commanders themselves will be court-martialed publicly if it comes to that, the Fitzgerald and the others. But the sailors under them, the ratings, may actually find themselves out on their ear from the Navy with no job prospects and assumed by other people to have been dishonorably discharged because the US Navy wants to cover up some untoward things going on. And some analysts are saying that this is a result of there being different, quote, tribes in the US Navy, or within the surface fleet and the Pacific Fleet in particular. One tribe is interested in actually fighting wars in every vessel, and the other tribe, the implication is more interested in pursuing social doctrine and revolutionary diversity agendas, much as happened in the US Air Force, and I think in the air wing of the US Navy some years before it's now got to the surface fleet. Of course, if it reaches the submarine fleet or the army, then the whole US armed.
So this is ex-GCHQ guy turning up in the Wag the Dog internet media, coming out with the conclusions that there's like infighting and all that in the American Navy. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. Maybe it happens in all navies. Maybe there might be some subversive groups in the Russian Navy and armed forces and shit. Who knows? Right, this is very one-sided, and like it's almost as if they're like ignorant to like everything that the other side can do. It's almost as if like, see, the crimes of the West are the only ones that exist. The other sides aren't capable of these things. I'm not fucking exonerating anybody for any of these fucking monstrosities and stuff. Far from it. I'm begging the question why these Wag the Dog internet talking heads, because that's what they are, man. Don't fucking forget, these are the people who told you about the talking heads and have turned into the talking heads. They were just another talking head. And they're not doing things that, even if you say that there were some quite bizarre electronic countermeasures at play, electronic warfare, even if you say their minds were addled by that or their equipment was scrambled, they weren't keeping basic watch in the nighttime conditions. They were preoccupied with their training, or possibly with each other in various untoward ways. Sex and violence may come into it with the number of tribes that there are on these warships now. And I think you've invented or coined a one-word phrase to describe. Oh, you invented or coined? Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, I declare a meme war. Hit us with it, Casper.
This, which is that they've been reframed. I think we need to look very, very hard at the training which the US military is getting.
Yeah, you've coined this reframing with like NLP. Some people argue NLP doesn't really work.
Or this part of it, along the lines that you've done in the past with British police and healthcare staff.
Alex, I have to just add to that, and then we'll move on, that of course one of the phrases that's being used in training everywhere now is disruptors. So the British government has been boasting through the Behavioural Insights team and the Cabinet Office as two sources that in order to transform training in many organisations, we need people to disrupt it. Of course, if you disrupt important organisations in how they work, how they operate, you are going to get mistakes, errors, and people are going to die.
Right, and these guys have not got the self-reflection to understand what they are doing is exactly what they're talking about there. They are sowing the seeds into many heads and many. That's ex-Navy. Ex-GCHQ sitting up there live on the YouTubes telling you how shite these organisations are. Think about it. And then they don't even want you questioning it. Questioning them. Where are you from? Why are you here? Painting the narratives that you're painting.
We'll come on to this in more detail another time, but thank
Go and look at the UK Columns address, whose business is related there. They are the British Constitution Group. They've never really had it, but they understood trying to be the Wag the Dog media. They couldn't be seen to be the British Constitution Group. But they are the British Constitution Group.
Thank you for that analysis.
Right, let's move on to Brexit. Now, last week there was quite a bit of stuff in the press about the fact that the European Union withdrawal bill had moved to the House of Lords, and quite a number of comments from particularly Brexit supporters saying, well, the House of Lords is a dodgy institution. It's got lots of pro-Remain people within it, and the House of Lords better not prevent the United Kingdom leaving the European Union by scuppering this bill. And if there's 2 points to make here. The first point, of course, is that this bill has got very, very little to do with actually leaving the European Union. If anything, it's about how we stay within its infrastructure and its institutions. Because, of course, one of the things, the main thing that this bill does is to bring the body of European Union law onto the British statute books in some form or another. Now, this is the Constitution Committee of the House of Lords that have issued a report today, and it's saying that the withdrawal bill, as it currently stands, needs to be substantially rewritten. It's saying it's probably, well, I'll say it's probably going to be an issue of debate, as I've sort of hinted at a few seconds ago, with the Remain supporting peers to vote for what they're describing as a motion of regret, that the UK will not have a second bite at a referendum.
I seen a party political broadcast by the Lib Dems the other day, man. I keep meaning to try and find it on the internet. And they were talking about giving the British people the final say, not the politicians, i.e. another vote.
Referendum to decide on the final thing. But nonetheless, this report saying that they're criticising the bill because the method proposed to create a new category, there's a method proposed to create a new category of, quotes, retained EU law that they believe would cause problematic uncertainties and ambiguities. This is from a constitutional point of view, because Britain does have a constitution. We've got to remember that. They said that the bill is dangerous in the sense that it is encouraging and providing ministers with the scope to amend regulations without parliamentary scrutiny. This is the so-called Henry VIII powers that have been widely covered recently. They're saying that it has an unacceptably wide emergency procedure for making short-term changes, and saying that the inability to secure agreements from Wales and Scotland say we acknowledge the scale, challenge and unprecedented nature of the task converting existing EU law into UK law, but as it stands, the bill is constitutionally unacceptable. We will work with others around the law.
My ears were boiling.
An enabling measure for, rather than an obstacle to, a transitional period, as is currently the case. This will include seeking amendments relating to exit day, ensuring the government cannot reduce rights via secondary legislation, and providing greater clarity about the role of the European Court of Justice and the future status of case law. Labour has consistently called for a transition period based on current terms, including a temporary extension to our participation in the single market and customs union. This would prevent a cliff edge for consumers and businesses in March 2019. And this was the statement from the key person.
So, interesting, their British Constitution group, look at some of the people that have came out and spoken on their behalf, Lord Pumpkin or whatever, or like on the side of their arguments. What was the other Lord? He's everywhere right now, man. The Nigel Farage mob love him, and he's like, what? God, no, he's a politician. I can't even remember his name. He's more a caricature to me.
This is a pretty dangerous situation, in my opinion, and I think this is partly being engineered. Any thoughts on that?
I think it's a real risk, Mike, and I think we need to take a step back and think what the House of Lords is. Perhaps even viewers in the United Kingdom are not fully aware of it. You cannot have an unchecked unicameral legislature. You can't have a single legislative body which sets statute law and then the Crown just rubber stamps it. It has to go through a deliberating chamber whose members act as senators, as they're called in some jurisdictions, or lords or peers of the realm, who are there to think from the point of view of the country, land, history, experience. Of course, there are flaws, but we're in a fallen world and we have to have these checks and balances. The Scottish Parliament, which is devolved, and the Senedd in Cardiff, and the Northern Ireland Assembly, which may be on its last legs, they're all unchecked unicameral legislatures. And what we were told in the devolution period of 2 decades ago is, don't worry, judicial review, so sending something to be looked at by a judge, Judicial review will serve in lieu of deliberation in the second chamber. But of course, judges, single ones especially, are part of the same system. The whole point of a House of Lords is that it takes a different view and that it's not accountable to anyone but its conscience and God. And of course, the oaths of allegiance to the Constitution. So there's a constitutional point. Look at the figures involved. One of the most prominent of the Lords in this process is Baroness Ros Altman, an American by birth, if I understand correctly, who gained notoriety during the Brexit campaign, referendum campaign period, by tweeting that we should obey our representatives, obey our members of parliament. And now she's openly talking about it might be in Parliament's interests to extend the leaving period for 2 years because that will be a better deal for us, unspecified interest groups. Although people may think she's speaking in the name of the country, but it's a bit of sleight of hand. So there are deeply deceptive people in the Lords and deeply compromised creatures of the system, but we cannot throw the baby out with the bathwater, because the last time we had an unchecked unicameral legislature was during the English Civil War, and look at how that turned out.
Well, that's absolutely right, Alex, and I'm not by any means suggesting that the Lords, as is currently constituted, is ideal, because it's far from it. But what is on offer, in fact, is a so-called elected upper chamber, and what we end up with, because we have a much stronger whipping system in the UK than, for example, the United States does, what we end up with potentially is the worst of all worlds, where we have a unicameral legislature which appears to be not.
The British are past masters at this, pretending that we do things just that bit more classily and more refined than other countries with a touch of tradition. For example, we abolished the Law Lords, which was our Supreme Court, and we did so by creating a Supreme Court on paper where we'd never had such an institution. But during its creation, the Law Lords in question said, "My lords, this is not going to be a Supreme Court because it doesn't have the powers." So we often do this in order to remove transparency from a system which had it without the name being there. We do so by creating
Sounds like what they're doing, and I'm not agreeing with either side here, by the way, but it also sounds like they're shelling like a couple of villains for the deterioration of the strength of the House of Lords. Now, again, I'm not arguing whether the separation of power is a good thing, right? Whether the House of Lords is part of that separation of power, I don't know. I'm not talking about my ruby red slipper moment right now. What I am saying is, when you look at the characters, where they're coming from, what organisations they've been part of, and now they're materialising as all these independent people on the UK column, who are pretty much the head of the tree when it comes to your daily dose of alternative bullshit in the UK, you can see who they're shilling like a villain for. I'm sorry, I can, and it's not only like the fucking names, the symbols, the way they hail from, the organisations, I'm an ex-GCHQ, and now I work for the UK column, all the way from Holland. I mean, hold on, I actually do it. I found something that I want to just, this makes it
fascinating.
Yeah, it's fair. Thanks, Spock.
Illogical.
Fucking damn right it's illogical. This guy's an independent journalism, just want to save the UK.
That, sir, is illogical.
Yep, it is illogical. These people have a dog in the fight, and they don't tell you what dog they have in the fight. That's why I smell shite! Anyway.
Independent and transparent institutions. It's a question of nomenclature, the labels you stick on things. Likewise, if you call the Lords something else like a reviewing chamber or a second chamber, or replace it with something of that name, it may be actually for the purposes of removing such a prior function rather than introducing a new one.
And just as a final point, of course, this doesn't. None of this takes away from the fact that the EU withdrawal bill is really not what it says on the tin. But the right questions still don't seem to be being asked, Alex.
No.
Yes, who are yous? Who are yous? Why is here pretending to be independent and telling us the truth? What is your ultimate agenda? I smell Trump. I smell Brexit. I smell subversion. serving the agenda of other people's countries? Or cliques, let's say, in the geopolitical info war about who can wrestle the bear the best? Yes, these people think Putin's just a wonderful man.
Now the right questions are: was it ever intended on the concept?
Yes, that's the guys in the white coats behind you, pal. Look, it's James Bond. Somebody, like, some...
Naming for this bill. The first name was the Great Repeal Bill, in which we see nothing's being repealed. Now it's called the EU Withdrawal Bill. It may actually have its name changed once we realise as a nation that we're not withdrawing from the EU.
Absolutely. Well, look, we mentioned the 2-year extension, and this letter has been published today. This is from the Secretary of State for exiting.
Who doesn't want? Right, and I'm not a fan of the European Union. I hate centralised power. I'm asking you: is there anybody out there with a dog in the fight, in the information war, that seems to have the Britain closer to America than the EU? I'm not saying one's better than the other. Again, my moral compass is straight. I'm not arguing for either side. I'm just saying that it's obvious that these are shells, for lack of a better word, for the opposite side of the argument, but they're not telling you that, so there aren't even what they purport to be.
The EU, David Davis, and also from Philip Hammond, and also from Business Secretary Greg Clark. Greg Clark, the three of them have said in this joint letter that they are committed to providing business with certainty and clarity, that businesses need to plan ahead, that UK firms will continue to trade under unchanged EU rules during the post-Brexit transition period. The duration of that period is going to be strictly time limited, however, and is going to last about 2 years. They say in order that our terms of trade remain unchanged during the implementation period, it will need to be based on the existing structure of EU rules and regulations. Our intention is to mimic the breadth of our current arrangements from goods to agriculture to financial services, meaning that every business, small or large, will be able to go on trading with the EU as it does today until it's time to make any changes necessary for the future partnership. So that's all a bit vague, not really clear, but we are going to have a transition period. It's going to be strictly time limited. Whether there's any scope in that to extend that for a further 2 years, well,
there you go, man. This is what you call real interactivity.
It's all dangerous stuff, Mike, and
thank you, Gary.
Noticed down at the bottom left hand, it's the Right Honourable Greg Clark MP, Secretary of State for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy.
It's real!
So Soviet to me.
Yeah.
I see a Soviet style.
Oh, do you see a Soviet?
In some ways, but it's fascistic in other ways. But this is nothing to do with exiting the European Union.
Right, so stick Soviet in there, stick fascist in there, stick a wee bit of Hitler in there, spice it up with a wee bit of Ku Klux Klan, a few more fucking fear fucking factor words, just to make people buy into your fear.
About creating a new state system.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is this Alex?
It is indeed, yeah.
So Alex, police probe Portugal's financial minister over Benfica tickets.
This is a bit complicated. You can see him there with Eurogroup behind him. The Eurogroup is the group of countries who are members of states of the European Union and which use the euro as their currency. So it is basically one of the finance ministers of a Eurozone country is appointed to speak on behalf of all of them and effectively to act as the finance minister of the Eurozone. The initial holder of this title was none other than Jean-Claude Juncker himself when he was Luxembourg finance minister and prime minister. If I'm not wrong, he combined the two titles because Luxembourg is a banana republic where that's kind of possible. And then it was Jeroen Dijsselbloem, after Juncker was in post for 8 years, and Dijsselbloem was the Dutch finance minister celebrated for his prickliness, and from 2013 to 18 he was the chap. And now there's a bit of an experiment because for the first time a finance minister from one of the pigs, that's Portugal, Ireland, Italy, Greece, Spain, the countries that had to be bailed out by the stability mechanism, which is the other side of the coin for the Eurogroup, the European Stability Mechanism. One of the bailout recipient countries, Portugal, has now provided its finance minister whose full name is Mario José Gomes de Freitas Centeno. So he's a bit of an aristocrat. And Mr. Centeno was.
So again, like pointing at corruption inside the European Union. There is people out there with big bags of cash, with dogs in the fight, that want people for real reasons or fake or just whatever to sway the public opinion one way or the other. I think it's naive to think there isn't. What would you say, Spock?
Most illogical.
Illogical.
Arranged advantages for a real estate company owned by, if I'm not wrong, the manager or in some way connected with that football club, so that they got fiscal advantages, tax breaks unfairly is the allegation which they're being raided for.
Never trust a man who still wears his school tie. I don't know how real it is or isn't, right, but I've heard arguments and backed up with like sort of a looking at Glasgow Rangers ties over the years, that ties can be quite symbolic for lots of secret clubs, not just the Masons. These gangs fucking want to throw up their signs and stuff, but anyway.
Zone of seeing whether the Mediterraneans really do have the same mentality and code of conduct as the Germanic nations, which is the whole point of why the Eurozone is falling apart, because this was said in advance that it wouldn't work. The laxity, the fiscal standards, the business cycles are all completely disparate and divergent. And this, I'm afraid, is the practical experiment of this. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. You give the Eurozone tenure to a country whose interests are in sucking the blood out rather than pumping the blood.
I thought this was a guy, I think Gary said it as well, right? A few free tickets for a football match.
This is the police for the worst neighbourhood in The Hague, a neighbourhood where I had my case stolen out of a train once on the way to the airport. And the police for this neighbourhood, best known as the Schilderswijk, if people have been on the train through The Hague, it's the area around Holland's Spoor railway station, the big menacing Victorian railway station full of criminals. If you've been through that area, you'll know the Schilderswijk is this very dodgy area around there, and the beat policemen for this police district of central Hague have made a rapping and hip-hop video to be down with the kids. You can see even the older officers in their 50s there in the back seats are waving their hands like hip-hoppers. And the bearded wonder at the front there is saying, and I can get away with saying it by doing it by using the Dutch form of the word. He says, "You must not."
I can get away with saying it. Is this too many often because I'm saying it in Dutch? Fuck, cunt and bugger, you ball bag. What the fuck is it with these people?
With our beat area, because there's a double entendre in there, of course. He may be pretending to say we're a really, a tough area, don't mess with us, as in the people. But the message, of course, to the young people is don't F with us, i.e. the police. Even by Dutch standards, I'm pretty gobsmacked that such a video has been set out. And Dutch public reaction has been largely to say, are these guys so desperate to be wanted to...
I think you should come back to the UK then. That's obviously Dutch took over by the anti-Christian Satanists. Come back to the UK where you can bask in your Christianness.
Seeing the Dutch police for this standard of behaviour, utterly appalling.
Right. Robert Hannigan, former head of GCHQ, is in Hong Kong.
I don't know.
So let's see what he's there for.
Yes, welcome to the UK column. Over in Dutchland, the cops made a rap video. Yes, UK.
I'll be talking about security in particular and how we do this great transformation.
Ex-director GCHQ, just like the wee ginger Alex Thompson, Casper the Ghost guy.
In the digital era in a way that is safe for people and respects ethics and privacy. The internet and the World Wide Web were not created with security in mind, and we're about to amplify that insecurity by adding billions of new little devices through the Internet of Things. Unless we find a way of building security into that next generation, the whole thing is going to be insecure.
So this is at the Great Festival of Innovation taking place in Hong Kong. not in the not too distant future, a couple of weeks. Well, the world has changed apparently, and the world of work has changed, Brian. Technology has created new industries, business models and behaviours. And to kickstart the great festival of innovation, they're going to explore how work is being transformed by innovation, radical ideas and disruptive technology. And audiences will discover how savvy businesses are evolving and working together to adapt to these changes and how they're prospering. They're going to discuss the importance of free trade, sustainable energy, cybersecurity, fintech, artificial intelligence, future workspaces, and much more. So just about every policy agenda that Theresa May has been talking about for the last number of months and reiterating again at Davos last week is going to be discussed at that. This is the British way forward, apparently. I don't see anything terribly productive in there. In fact, what I see there is stuff which is going to remove people's jobs, never mind create new jobs.
Again, it's like the robot fear, isn't it? Right? A good or bad. All you're talking about is like, see, all the Western corporation cockhorns, they're all getting together and trying to go, right, like, let's get ahead in the technology and make sure that we can dominate China and dominate Russia, right? And then through this propaganda outfit, all you hear is like how bad the Western corporations are. They're not pointing and going, right, well, right, good or bad, right, whatever. I don't believe in corporations anyway, so it's irrelevant, man. This argument, what I'm saying is they're continually pointing at the Western companies. Another one would be the Bilderberg Group. They're a selective group of people from particular areas of the world. You would call it maybe the old world order. So they would always point to the Bilderberg Group, but none of the other groups that were springing up, fucking trying to allow the corporation dominance of this world take over. Like, corporations getting this kind of fucking thing in bed with governments to control us and all the security and stuff. Crazy, not good, auga. How do you fucking stop that? Well, you hopefully win the argument and people take control of their countries and whatnot and stop it. How don't you win the argument? Well, you participate in a one-sided, polarised view of it, and ultimately you're getting played by somebody else. I mean, these people, the UK column, look at these people, they're all like fucking PhDs up their nines. They understand this stuff.
He's mentioned that famous word transformation. People really got to pick up on this word, because transformation is used without ever saying what you are transforming from to. And so the to bit is the bit you need to know about, because our analysis shows that the new society that's being created is not one we're going to enjoy. And he drifts in there the internet of
our analysis
things.
As opposed to your Christian paradise is going to be beautiful.
People haven't heard that expression before.
What's your paradise?
The agenda is that every single item that you have, you use, you come across will have its own unique identity chip, and therefore that item will be databased and tracked. Everything, every single thing in the world will be chipped. That is the agenda.
There's also a parallel agenda, increasingly the Internet of People. Now, whether we're going to be chipped, that's another question. But anyway, look, he was talking about security and cybersecurity and so on. I have to say I found this one particularly strange, and I'm interested to get your view and also Alex's on this. It seems like a silly story to start off with, but this is Strava, the fitness tracker, and the BBC here saying that the online fitness tracker Strava has published a heat map showing the paths that users log as they run or cycle. So this is about people that are running around with this device, and it's tracking them as they go. It's tracking how far they run. It's tracking the paths that they take, and then they have published this map showing, of course, everybody's track.
People do fitness and all that. This is really good stuff, man.
So you get a heat map. But what was being highlighted here in the BBC and right across the mainstream media today was the fact that
it didn't exclude a military base. Not good, I suppose, eh?
This included military personnel, and they were focusing on US military and the fact that the jogging habits of US military personnel on foreign bases were being published by a private company and potentially showing targets to insurgents.
Well, potentially giving the geographic layout of the base, because many people will jog around the perimeter, Mike. So you're absolutely getting the size of the base identified there.
So, Brian, the first thing that struck me about this was to ask the question: is the US and
how stupid that the US military is? The Russian military toys are great.
perhaps the British military, are they so incompetent that they are not considering the security issues of people using these devices? Is it not likely that military personnel have been given a blanket ban on the use of these types of devices?
Well, I'm going to say it's complex. What can we say? Well, of course, the military does know about these things because there's a policy over the use of mobile phones which can be tracked. And obviously, for example, if you have a ship at sea and somebody's going to have their phone with a location feature activated, then potentially the ship is then going to be tracked. So yes, there are policies.
Potentially, if there was any actually information that would be valuable to terrorists and that out there, potentially it would be stupid for the BBC, like they apparently did there, to report on it and going, here terrorists, this is where you get the maps, through some fuck up and Strava posting them, but here they are, and the UK column would be the same. Oh dear, look at this stuff, this is really, really, really bad. People could kill people with this information. Look, this is where it is. Oh God, bastard.
Every single thing in the world.
The security
not bothered or don't know how, or don't see the reason why they have to. And even if they do mark their data as private, it does get aggregated at the server. So the company and whoever it's passed to for commercial or security reasons does still know
Strava.
where the aggregation of certain activities at certain times is happening. And at the end of the article, the suggestion is that the problem is human error, and this is something that's plagued every endeavor from the dawn of time. Well, that's a typical sign-off line for a tech article, of course, suggesting that people are still people. Well, yes, but we have now leveraged our abilities so much.
I see
The
what
whole
other
thing is
stories.
about. It's nothing to do with protecting the children. Let's pop back for a moment and see what was really going on. Well, children being abused, and when this was about to blow, here's the action of the council staff. They seized files and wiped computers to cover up the scale of the child sex grooming. So this is the reality of it. Children were being abused, and then officials took information and destroyed it to hide the crime. So we're talking criminal activity. People threatened. UKIP MEP sent death threats after slamming Rotherham Council over child abuse scandal. We've got this one here, a researcher who tried to expose the Rotherham abuse feared for her life after police officers' threat. So the reality of Rotherham is not only that children were abused, but officials, many of whom should have been protecting the children, were prepared to commit further criminal acts in order to cover up the crime. But not to worry, because everything's been solved now. Ofsted has praised action taken by Children's Services Department to improve its child protection work since being rated inadequate. So criminal activity was then labelled inadequate, and now we've solved the inadequateness of the organisation, the inadequacy of the organisation, by transforming it. And how do we do this? Well, we bring in a government-appointed commissioner, Patricia Bradwell. So you can have a look at her. She's worked in other local government offices, whereas Children's Services for Lincolnshire County Council. And what was she going to do? Well, now we get a clue. The council to have strong and supportive partnerships which are underpinned by a common vision, ensuring clarity on roles and responsibilities, both
The point at common vision and link it to common purpose.
individually.
Common purpose, fair. What about, like, all accounts very real, get lots of government money, and they're a political charity. Very fucking similar to the British Constitution Group.
And
Well, I don't know. They're a political organisation that takes work. It's a charity. It's a registered charity.
collectively.
That would be a common purpose.
Yeah, this is all about partnerships and collective leadership. The second paragraph, there's clearly been a step change in partnership working through better leadership. So we forget the children, we're now into changing the management structure into this collaborative, collective partnership working. So this is politicization of the whole thing. This is the report itself, which you can find on the internet. So I encourage people to go and have a look and read it for themselves. This is some of the sort of thing it says. I'll just jump into this bit. Risks posed to children and young people by domestic abuse and high-risk adults are considered effectively of children. And the children's opinion is simply now being vilified.
The truth, and a sad loss to the media community. Any thoughts, any closing thoughts, Alex?
It's very sad to see that he's not with us anymore. Mr. Parry has really been one of the figureheads and driving forces behind the new alternative media scene that we have. You know, when I was a child, obviously there was no internet, well, there was secretly, but the alternative and free media was garishly produced flyers and magazines and so on, and talks at halls. That was about as far as you could get it. And it was thanks to Robert Parry and many others of his ilk that he was, I think, quite peerless in his quality and dedication, who had the guts. And of course, they braved being sued because of this prominent story. It shows that you so in the coming
for joining us as always. That's it for today's UK Column News. We will be back at the same time tomorrow. If you're not a subscriber of UK Column, please consider taking out a subscription. We need your financial support.
Superior ability
to all the people
breeds
who've
superior ambition.
over the last few weeks. It is much appreciated.
I speak from
we
pure
still
logic.
need those donations to continue to do what we do. Thanks for joining
Evil
us.
does
Bye-bye.
seek to maintain power by suppressing the truth.
Very, very good, Mr. Spock. So thanks for joining, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Thank you, Humpty Dumpty, as well. Mike Robinson, I think. Thanks for that picture, Gary, as well. That was spot on, man. It's good the way that can actually happen. So in the afternoon one, and also just a UK column, critically thought about life. I'm going to do them every day of the week as an alternative and just for food for thought. In the pursuit of thinking about all sources with a critical head. It's a worthwhile exercise. So in the afternoon one and all, Stewie, Jamesy Boy, Chinny, Gary, thanks for joining, everybody. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Let me see, is this working? Rab, Cheech, Gary, Jamesy Boy, in the afternoon one and all. Roberto Carlos MacGyver, how yous all doing, guys? Rab, Humans, how you doing, man? And Stewie, so thanks for joining one and all. If you have appreciated 1984 Newspeak News at 1 live, feel free to stick a wee thumbs up. It is much appreciated, helps the channel and the clips. Everything will be in Clips 1883 from now on. Everything, it's a larger channel. If you get any value from the shows and live streams I do, feel free to use the Patreon and PayPal buttons down below. Big thanks to everybody that has, by the way. Some people do get some value from the bullcrap I do. And all the other links for the YouTubes, other social medias, Ridiculizer for all the music. The theme tune is In the Dark, if you want to go and check that out, amazing. And Monday to Friday, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, will be a live chat room. So this week, going to do the UK column, and next week I think I'll do RT. And then after that, probably do Press TV and mix it up just on weekly cycles, diving into different news sources every week with a critical eye for the Newspeak. They're all talking to us in the afternoon one, and all have a good one. Hope you all had a good weekend. I'm out. Oh, and tune in tonight for Cookie Soul Excalibur, I'm sure will be on. I'll share that in the community page, or somebody else will, I'm sure. Make sure you check that out. Alrighty, YouTubes, thanks for listening. Catchies!
Clips.